Bonjour monsieur et madame, it is me le chef Reddit, today I have a specialala Reddit for you. Bon appétit and remember to subscribe.
Disney theme park characters, have there been situations where you had to break character? What was the reason? Consequences? I couldn't even get the zombies at Halloween Horror Nights to break character. Asked one where the restroom was and he flung his arms in the proper direction and grunted. Pretty hilarious. I wasn't a character but was a cast member. I was walking from backstage into the park. If you've seen the transitions, they are S-shaped to keep people from peeking in. I was pushing a dolly hand cart. The ones we used had two long supports sticking out from the end. As I was going though, Winnie the Pooh was walking in from the other side. I hit her square in the leg with it. Hearing Winnie the Pooh say, "fuck," was a pretty damn funny. They don't break character. If a nuke fell on Disney, they'd be ushering you into the bomb shelters as Aladdin or whatever. I watched Jack Sparrow talking to a kid when the kid started puking everywhere. He said, "Too much of the old apple juice, eh? Been there myself, even ran out once." All the while, the kid is just projectile vomiting everywhere. I was at Disneyland once and the sheriff of Nottingham was fake menacing a child. He reached out to touch the kid's balloon and for some reason it popped. The character actor was clearly stunned. A new balloon appeared less than 30 seconds later. I was at Disneyland a couple weeks ago and saw Darth Vader not cutting down younglings. It was just unprofessional as all hell. My cousin used to do this when I was a kid. We'd always go try to find her on days we knew she was working. She mostly played Pooh Bear. She would never say out loud, "Hi Noogatuk," but she would get very animated and jump around to give us hugs. Occasionally she'd still say things like, "I have a rumbly in my tummy." I thought I was the coolest kid 'cause I knew Pooh Bear. I've seen articles that face characters can leave at any time if harassment is bad, using in-character excuses. Costume characters always have an attendant with them to control unruly guests. I wasn't a character but worked closely with them, as a photographer. Disney performers are trained to never break character for whatever reason. They have ways of signaling their character attendant that they are in distress, and it's generally up to the character attendant to avoid any weird or uncomfortable situations. As far as weird situations, they do get people that stalk them in the park. Like some people get in those lines multiple times to get a photo with a specific performer. The weird side of Disney fanatics are something else. Worked at the Disney store in late '87 and '88 in Orange County, California. I think, at the time, it was like one of only a handful of stores open. The back of the store had a big screen, where we constantly played some Disney video. Every once in a while, the biggest, muscular, blackest, gayest dude would come in and kindly request we play anything Pooh-related. He'd then proceed to prance around the store. He came in the evenings, towards closing, and sing the Tigger parts of either dialogue or any song. Turns out he was one of the Tiggers at Disneyland. Dude just loved being Tigger. The type of people that play characters are very into it. If something comes up that needs to be addressed, they will handle it in character. You've probably heard stories about characters helping kids find their parents. These days characters always have handlers nearby that have walkie-talkies. A few days ago, me, my sister and her friend went to the new Galaxy's Edge area. My sister's friend was around 6 feet 1 inch and had never seen Star Wars. We were walking around and Chewbacca ran up to her, he was around her height, and hugged her. He put his hand above his head, showing they were both tall. She was super embarrassed, and while we were walking away, he did that fist pump thing. Since then we refer to her as Chewbacca's girlfriend. Seriously, the cutest thing ever. Wow, they don't mess around with their silence vow, huh? I went once and a man was harassing Cinderella, so she excused herself to the bathroom and ran to a security guard. Saw a recent video on YouTube of a Ray talking to this little girl and her dad had just started filming. Apparently the story the little girl was telling got Ray laughing so hard, she had to turn her face away and eventually got up and ran away because she couldn't stop laughing at whatever the little girl's story was. Super adorable. I hugged the snot out of Stitch a couple of years ago and I'm pretty sure that I heard a squeak. If you're reading this, friend of Stitch, I'm very sorry for hugging you so hard. It's really unlikely that you'll get any current cast members to answer. Also, there's no need for them to break character since they have handlers or security nearby if there is a safety concern or emergency. They also have tons of places to get out of sight to have a private moment. I wouldn't say break, but I was a lifeguard and I had to ban this kid from going down the water slide. Every single time I told him he had to be feet first and every time he said okay. But he kept going head first and it got to the point where the other kids saw him and were copying him. He left and cried to mom and dad and I explained to mom and dad why. They left and cried to my coordinator and my cord came back saying that wasn't very magical. I explained after several times of this kid not listening, other kids were copying him. In any case, I got a stern talk to about being that nice lifeguard who explains why versus the mean lifeguard who just yells orders. Later that day that kid was running across the deck, despite several requests not to, tripped and ate concrete. Person shrugging male sign. Don't hate me because I don't feel bad. On a Disney cruise I met a guy who looked exactly like Peter Pan. When we asked him he said, nope, Peter Pan has brown eyes, or something like that. The next day when we went to get a picture with Peter he got super close and whispered, see? Peter has brown eyes. Hands down best Disney employee I've ever met. He was also Pluto. WDW character department at Magic Kingdom many years ago. I can't remember breaking character but I do remember working the restaurant at the Contemporary for dinners. One time we had a Make-A-Wish kid as a guest and they were just the most awesome kid, and it was just heartbreaking to know why they were there. So our lead let us do a group hangout with the kid for something like an hour in costume, playing and running around and having fun. You could never play like that in the parks, you'd start a kid riot. No consequences, we just all hoped we made that little kid happy. Bonus fun fact, the Goofy costume for the Electric Light Parade was worn by a float driver. Because the driver was seated, no pants with that costume, just the glittery top and head and gloves. One of the traditions for our college sorority back in the 80s was that the day after initiation, all the new members and their big sisters would go to Disneyland sporting their brand new letters to wear. One of the costume characters in the parade kept throwing gang signs or something at us and we were so confused. Turns out it was one of our sisters who had to work that day. She was trying to do our sorority's hand symbol, but with her hands in oversized furry gloves it didn't show up so well lol. A bit late, but I did the college program at WDW. Never saw a character break when I worked audience control for parades. Definitely saw a few fully costumed characters puke in their heads, and Prince Naveen once got heat exhaustion and managed to leave the parade route fully in character. Once the parade was over, we saw him in the back almost completely passed out. Typically the parade will just speed up to double time if a character actor is in distress. A face performer broke character for my husband and I won't say which park, but we took a trip to Disney about 2 months after our infant son died. He was our first. Our entire nursery was Neverland, Peter Pan themed. We always wanted to take him to Disney, have him meet Peter. Well, he couldn't. I got a memorial tattoo, an exact replica of my son's hospital ink handprint, and we got a picture of Peter Pan with the tattoo. We were alone with him and his handler. I tearfully explained the situation before asking him to pose with my arm. He took lots of photos with my tattoo and us. And afterward he hugged me tight, told me he was proud of me, and God bless us, and he was so sorry for our loss. It was amazing, emotional, and I'll never forget that Peter Pan was proud of me for finding the strength to keep on living. It honestly meant the world. I'm so glad he broke character. I'll always treasure those photos and that memory. Maybe someone who actually played Tarzan can confirm this for me. Disneyland used to have a Tarzan character, but you don't see him anymore. Since the characters are always expected to pose for photos and selfies, and Tarzan wore nothing but a loincloth, women were constantly grabbing the actor's ass when they got in close. So, the park just quit that character. Update, after some confirmation of the bad behavior, there are still recent Tarzan sightings. It appears Disney paused the character and redesigned his loincloth costume into one more like a pair of shorts and a jungle vine sash. Apparently, women are still grabby, but the costume department tried to make it a little less easy. My neighbor, he died a couple of years ago, so I'm safe in telling this, worked at Disney for years. One day he was stocking shelves in a gift shop and came around the corner and nearly ran into none other than Paul and Linda McCartney. Before he could stop himself, he loudly exclaimed, "Holy shit. It's the McCartneys." He immediately realized how big of a breach of Disney cast member etiquette he had committed and turned 12 shades of red, but before anything bad could happen, Paul and Linda just smiled and laughed and introduced themselves. Apparently they were wonderfully laid back about such things, and quite used to surprised reactions when people recognize them in public. He didn't get into any trouble, his boss saw the whole episode and thought it was hilarious, and I think they both signed a hat or something for him as they were checking out. This reminds me of that story about the little girl and boy whose parents died that got VIP treatment for a day by a Disney park character. One of the most touching stories I've ever read, stuck with me. Visitant from last year here. On the Halloween night, I've seen 2 female employees working on the store, not characters though, clearly upset by some kind of superior order. The exact dialogue was, "Yeah, sometimes it gets hard, I know it does, but that attitude was unacceptable." I didn't resist, and I said, "I guess even in Disney working sometimes sucks." The first girl immediately stood up and smiled as bright as she could. "What do you mean? Working here is awesome every time." I couldn't help but feel that she was agreeing with me, but never breaking the happy land face. Awesome place.
Thank you for watching. What was your favorite answer? Do you have a better one? Comment it down below. Au revoir.